And now, Focus on the Pines with your host, Jack Barnes.
Hi, I'm Jack Barnes, and welcome to Focus on the Pines, where we bring you news, views, and interesting people from in and around Ocean Pines. If there's one name synonymous with charitable endeavors in our area, it would have to be our guest today, Anna Foultz. Anna's tireless, and some would say relentless efforts have raised thousands of dollars for worthwhile causes in our area. I thought you might find it interesting to hear a little more about the life of this interesting individual. And Anna, I pulled her away from a very busy schedule and appreciate your coming here today, and welcome to Focus on the Pines.
Thank you.
Now, let's start, shall we say, in the beginning. Your parents were living up in New Haven, Connecticut.
Right.
But it's an interesting story that you weren't born in New Haven, Connecticut. Tell our viewers a little bit about that.
Oh, well, when my mother was carrying me, she had about 3 months to go. She told my father that she wanted to go see her mother. And my father said, okay, so we go. And when she got to Camden, New Jersey, where he is, he has a barber shop. And so when she saw my mother, she got so excited and everything, she went to the bathroom, and I was born in the barber shop.
No kidding, in your grandfather's barber shop.
That's right.
In Camden, New Jersey.
In Camden, New Jersey.
What an entry into the world.
So there I was.
But there you were. And then your dad and your parents were Italian. And
right.
It's fair to say kind of old world Italian. Your dad was strict, and he was a musician?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he was. He played the guitar like you wouldn't believe. And my mother, she sang opera. And he used to take her around the area singing, and we'd go. But we couldn't move, we had to stay right there and sit in the front row while all this is going on. And I wish we had tape at those days so I could have taped some of her voice. She used to make people cry. She was just very good. Now,
your parents in an early time, basically in your life, moved from New Haven and moved you over to Pottstown, Pennsylvania?
Right. Pottstown, Pennsylvania, where we went to school. He was very strict, my father. You couldn't even go out with anybody when you were young, 16 or 17. He wouldn't let us out of the house.
But that's where you got in high school. You really got your first taste of the world of charity thanks to a sort of a religious experience. Tell our viewers about the situation with the priest in Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
When I was in junior high, I went to parochial school, and the priest came in, and the nuns, he came in as to give us a story about they needed to raise funds for St. Mary's Star. I forget the name of it now. But anyway, nobody would raise their hand. And I didn't know what to do, so I said, I'll do it, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So...
you raised your hand.
I raised my hand. So I went home to my sister, and she does a very good act with Bugs Bunny and those dead-end kids, if anybody remembers them.
Now, your sister's name was Penny.
My sister's name was Penny, and she knew how to perform. And so she was the... Bugs Bunny, that guy, what's his name, Bugsy. And I was the policeman, and we did this little skit. So when the nun saw us practice this, she said, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. And we said, well, that's the only thing we can do. So then she said, all right. So they put us on last because they figure they're no good, they're just there. Anyway... When we did this, I wanted to be Betty Grable, so after we did the skit, we did Down Argentina Way. So we
That's a song?
It's a song that was Betty Grable. She made it famous in Down Argentina Way.
How's that go? Do you remember still to this day?
Oh, gosh, let me see. No, I can't think of the tune right now.
But you both decided you were going to sing this.
We were going to sing that and do a dance. You know, you pick up your skirt a little bit and go around.
Oh, the nuns must have loved that.
Well, when they saw us there, the nuns were giving us all dirty looks when we came to the dance down Argentina Way. Then she looked at the priests. They were all sitting in the front row, and they all start laughing and clapping so loud. Well, then the nuns went wild clapping, and I was the star of the day. But then my father, being so strict, came home unexpectedly, and we won first prize, and he took that money.
How much was first prize?
$100.
$100, a lot of money back then.
That's right. He took the $100. He says, "Give it to the charity, and you two go home." And then he turned around at the nun and smiled, and we went home. And so next day at school, we were a hit. Everybody came to us, said, "What a great job." Well, anyway, that was my first encounter with fundraising, and I thought, gee, that was good. We helped the organization.
And you had a good time doing it.
And we had a good time.
Now, you did have, that was your sister Penny.
Oh, and that, I forgot to tell you, we were to go on Major Bowles program. They send us a letter to come and do that thing. I don't know how they found out.
Now, what's Major Bowles' program?
It's a talent show in New York.
Okay.
Okay. So we were all excited when we got the letter, but then when my father came home from wherever he was, I forget what now, he saw this letter, he tore it up and threw it out, and we wouldn't even, and he wouldn't let us go on the show. So that was a down.
Well, he was kind of a strict dad, wasn't he? He wanted to make sure he kept that good-looking Anna. And you had how many other? You had a large family.
Yes, I did. I had. We had 4 girls and 1 boy. And so we still are all alive yet, but we're getting up there, all of us.
Now, in high school, you also had the, I don't know if we'll call the first encounter of pleasure, but that's when you first met Carl, who you call, what's Carl's nickname?
Gil.
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 And
Gil.
Tell our viewers about that first encounter.
You think I should?
Sure, why not? They won't tell anybody.
Well... my next door neighbor, she had her husband passed away, and she had a daughter and wanted to put her in college, so she needed extra money. So she went to the school where Carl was getting training for the Signal Corps and asked him for some young men that were reliable and she could trust. So they sent 3 young men. One was Carl, one was Sig, and the other was Bob. And they were in this living room. She brought them and showed them around. So she came over and got our 4 of us to go over and see the fellas. And she said, "Now don't get serious with any of them because they're going in the service, and you know you don't want to get bothered with that. But I want you to meet them." So we all go in there, and I walk in there, and my husband comes over to me.
Not your husband then.
No, he wasn't.
Just a guy you had never met.
That's right. I never saw him in my life. So he came over and grabbed me, gave me a big kiss. And I slapped him.
And what did he say?
"I'm going to marry you," he says. Oh, no. I slapped him and ran home. So
that was a good first encounter.
Can you believe that? Anyway.
But he pursued you relentlessly.
Yes, he did. He was the only one that fought for me. My father was very strict, as you know. Any place we went, the people in Pottstown would call my father and say, "Your daughter's here with a boy," and then he'd come running over there. So we'd have to run.
So how did you end up dating him? You kind of used to do a little what we call sneak dating?
We had to do a little. I know it's not nice to do, but what we did was put notes in the tree. There was like a hole in the tree in front of my house. So when my husband came home from classes, he'd put a note in there, "Meet me here, meet me." And I'd say, well, when my dad goes to sleep, I'll sneak out, which is not a good thing to do.
And did you sneak out with your sister, too?
I had
Why'd
to bring
you do
my
that?
sister with me so she wouldn't squeal. You know, her name is Lucille, and we had to give her money and bribe her, take her to the movies. But he stuck up for me because I was going with another guy I liked, but he was out of the question because every time he'd pull up, my husband would come out with these 2 guys and scare them away. And so I had to go with him. We used to go to carnivals. You know, in Pottstown, they had these wonderful carnivals, and that's where we used to see him. He was always in back of me somewhere. And one time he almost had a big fight with a group, and it was awful. So in a little town, everybody knows each other.
That's
and
right.
if they see, now one day we were coming home from the movies with my sister, and this guy stopped the car, and they were all soldiers in it, and they called us over to say, "Where's the American Legion around here?" So I went over to tell him that, and just then my father pulls up in this Buick with the yellow wheels, this big Buick, and took his strap off and chased me home. And see, I wasn't doing anything, but he didn't understand. But that's because he was strict.
Strict Italian.
Yes, he was. So
Now,
I'm not going to be that way with my children. I trusted him, you know.
Now, in high school, you had an unfortunate event. Your mom passed away during your high school years, and you were forced to drop out and
junior high when I was in junior high.
and you had to go out and go to work.
Yep.
Now, what did you do?
Well, I did all kinds of things. I worked at it. It was what's the name of it? I can't even think of the name of it now.
Was that the aircraft factory?
Yeah, it was something like that in Potts. In where was it? In I can't think of the name. I'm sorry.
But what I can think of, it was an aircraft factory.
Yes.
And a lot of people can envision that.
Sure.
But you sort of had a special place in that aircraft factory, sort of like the Betty Grables of the world.
Oh no, no! I worked over at later on. I went to Glen L. Martin's.
Did they have your pictures up, though? Was
Yeah,
that
they
where?
had the pictures
And we
up.
call that today, in those days, we call that the pinup girl.
Well,
So you were the pinup girl?
yep. This guy, his name was George Stuper. He was a photographer, you know. So he went around looking for pictures, you know. And so I showed him the picture that I had with the bathing suit on the pier of our house. We had a pier, and he loved that picture, so he had it blown up. And then somebody took them all. And now all I have is this little picture that I had in the very beginting. But it was a big honor.
But
you know.
you have your memories.
Yes.
And you ended up, basically, you and Carl, let's say the romance fostered, and you ended up moving over into Maryland, into Carl's parents' home.
Right.
And
yeah,
then
in Bowley's quarters. It was in Bowley's quarters. And then he went to the service while I was working at Glen L. Martin's there. He went to the service. And
but then he came home.
for 4 years, I think. Yeah.
And what happened? He came home. You weren't fooling around when he came home, were you? There was something about avoiding temptation. And to avoid
That's right.
temptation after all those years, what did you do?
Well, I really had to rush and get everything together for 3 days. I had to get the license.
The marriage license?
Right. In Bowley's quarters is where we got married, in that area, in that church there. I forgot the name of it. But anyway, it was a safe thing to do.
It was a safe thing to do.
It was a very safe thing to do.
And Anna, I happen to have, since you were kind enough to loan it to me, this is a photo of you and Carl, known as what, Gil?
I call him Gil,
You call him Gil?
Yes.
And I say this, you make a beautiful bride. I can see why Carl pursued you
Thank
so
you.
fervently all those years.
Thank you.
Beautiful bride. You were married in where?
Bowley's quarters
Bowley's
area,
Quarter.
but the church there in Essex, Maryland.
Essex, Maryland.
Yeah, that's where the church was.
And
But I think I don't have the name of it. I should have brought it.
now that's sort of, Carl was sort of a little old-fashioned. He really didn't want you to go out and work. He knew you had spent a lot of tough years working, and he didn't want you to work. And he kind of wanted you to get involved in maybe
Politics
some charitable
and
work, politics, and that type thing.
Because he worked for the government, and they don't allow them to get involved. So my big thing was Girl Scouts. I started Girl Scouts in our area and did all kinds.
Now, what was your area at that time? You moved all over the country, but you were in Washington,
I'm
D.C.
trying
at the
to think,
time?
Where was the first? Yes, that's where it was.
Near Washington.
Near Washington, D.C.
And if I remember right, Anna, there was something called the Great Girl Scout White House Caper. Tell us, that had to do with a camp, a Girl Scout camp you were trying to save. You remember that?
Oh, that was terrible.
Tell our viewers about that story.
My heart just goes down when I think about it. We were trying to save Rockwood Camp in Maryland. I mean, was it Maryland? Virginia, isn't it?
Virginia, it's close.
Think of it.
Girl Scouts from Maryland went there, too.
And this girl, she willed this camp to the Girl Scouts because it was near Washington, D.C., and so I was on the committee to stop the sale. In her will, she said we should keep this camp and never sell it and all that. So they knew how to get around those things. And I was really upset, so I met Justice Berger's secretary and wife.
That's Supreme Court Justice Berger's wife,
right,
who you became friends with.
So to get information, I went over there. So then I asked Jimmy Carter's secretary if she would help me. And so I did a lot. I met a lot of interesting people.
Now, it should be said, some of that was thanks to your husband, Carl, who in the military had top secret clearance, but because of that, it gave you pretty good access to the congressional halls and the important people, the movers and shakers in Washington, D.C.
Well, whenever any dignitaries would come into Washington area in order to fill the rooms and so on, they would get these top clearance federal workers, and they'd invite them to come. So that's how we got to see a lot of people. And
now continue the story on the White House saving the camp. You met with Justice Berger's wife. Right.
She was so kind to me. She brought me in the office, and I got to see all his memorabilia, which just made me so humble to be able to see all this. And I told her my plight, and then I was guided to a reporter that lived near me, and I went and I called him up, and he doesn't want me to name his name, and I said, I need a good news story because we need to save this camp. So he did a real good press release for me, and that got us all going good, and we were doing great.
You also called up 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
You were on a roll.
We were winning. There's no question.
But then tell us about, then you decided to picket the White House?
That's true. So that we would have some publicity, we organized a protest in front of the White House. So all the Girl Scouts, some of them, not everybody, but we formed a whole group there. And we weren't getting any publicity. So what I did was I pretended I fainted. And it's true. This is true. You can even check it. And they took me to the hospital, and then we did get all kind of publicity. So the next day, the council, I went to the beach because we had a place in Breezy Point, and we used to go there weekends. So I got a phone call that said, get down here right away, they're going to give up, they're quitting the whole thing. I said, what are you talking about? We're going on 60 Minutes in a week or two. And they said the headquarters had called and said...
That's the National Girl Scout headquarters.
Yeah, that we better stop or we won't be in Girl Scouts anymore. I shouldn't be saying that, though.
Well, it was one of those things that was
because I love
they
Girl
didn't think
Scouts.
It was going to happen. They were going to sell it and use the money, and suddenly Anna rises out of the ashes and brings
with
this thing back.
And I flew back from the beach, and I said, "You girls are really you know we're winning. Why did you give up?" Well, they forced us to give up. So I wasn't there, and they voted. And I wasn't there. Had I been there, I'm sure I didn't, I could have stopped it. Maybe. I don't know. But anyway.
But with hours of work, that was probably one of your most disappointing charitable causes. And it's one of those things that happened, but you didn't stop. And if I remember correctly, you were awarded the nation's capital pin for selling the most Girl Scout cookies and for 4 years in a row.
Right.
And you awarded, Jimmy Carter presented you an award?
A congressional award for the Youth in Action program that I did, which started these children after school. What they did was they were getting into all kind of trouble where I live in Virginia, Kings Park. So I called my lawyer and I said to him, can you help me get this organized? So he got the charter and all that. So after school, you couldn't pay these students any money. It's against the law because they're under 16. So then I decided, well, they're going to get a bond. Is that permissible? And they said yes. So I said, we'll go clean churches and we'll do, parks, and this will give them a couple hours every day to do something till their parents came home. So it was a big success. So then I was awarded the Congressional Award. And anyway.
And you earned it. There's no doubt about that, even though you
it was a lot of work, but I kept the children busy. That was the important thing to me, to keep them off the streets.
And you were keeping yourself busy because you also had all this access because of Carl's top secret clearance, and you were wasting it, and you ended up doing some political work for a guy named John Warner.
John Warner.
And for viewers that don't know, and Anna, John Warner was married to who?
He was married to Elizabeth Taylor.
Elizabeth Taylor. And that brings up the cow patty story and that event. Tell our viewers about the cow patty.
Well,
you were going to see John Warner on a farm, and Elizabeth Taylor was there going out for a function.
We were trying to get John Warner elected, the Republican women, in that area. So we were invited to a reception kind of thing. So everybody wore gowns, and it was a real formal affair at her farm in Leesburg, Virginia. And John has this beautiful farm. It's a beautiful farm. So my girlfriend told me one time that she had beautiful azaleas in front of her house, and they were so pretty and just so bright. So I said to her, what do you do to get them so bright like that? And she said, well, what you have to do is use some cow manure, mix it with the rainwater, put it in a bucket, and there's where you pour that on your azaleas. And I said, oh, where am I ever going to get that?
So now you're arriving at John Warner's reception. You and Carl are dressed to the nines.
In a tuxedo.
And you get out of the car, and what do you spot?
I see this cow manure all over the farm. So I said to my husband, Dad, go out there and get some of that manure and put it in the trunk. He said, are you crazy? Of course he didn't do it. We had a gold Cadillac, and we opened the back. I said, why don't you just put some in? No way. Are you out of your mind? Close the back of that. And so we didn't get any. So that's the story.
And you went on, and I have a photo here of, let's see, was that Senator Warner? Was that the right?
No,
what was he then?
Jack Harity. He is a Republican representative.
Okay, thank you for straightening that.
He was a guest.
And over there is Elizabeth Taylor.
And this is Irene Hunsinger. She ran the mall where we did Girl Scouts for a whole week. I organized this Girl Scout during Girl Scout week, and it was for the whole week, and I had all troops from Virginia, Washington, and Maryland.
And the pretty lady on the other side of the gentleman is Anna Foultz.
Oh.
That would be true. Now, I probably shouldn't bring this up. Well, Elizabeth maybe won't see this show. Here she had a little language problem on occasion. Is that true?
Oh, I don't like to say that.
Shall we call it potty mouth?
Well, she was very strong in her opinions. She voiced them when she shouldn't have, and that I was against because we're trying to get her husband elected.
Yeah, that wasn't helping you at the time, right?
No, but she was nice. She liked attention. That's the thing she loved. So when we were at this fundraiser one time, she grabbed me and we did the Congo all through the grounds because she was getting all this attention, and that's good. She's a beautiful lady. She has the most beautiful eyes I ever saw, and it was sad that they broke up, but that happens. Can't help.
Yep, that's Hollywood, I guess.
But I got to meet a lot of wonderful people doing Girl Scouts and.
Well, you met the Henry Kissinger, and you met the Emperor of Japan, and others, and that was an enjoyable time of life. You had a chance to raise funds for others, and also sort of exciting to meet some of the people. And I had
a clearance to go when I was doing Rockwood. They gave me a clearance to go through the White House, every place. I really went to every congressman to save that camp, and I'm still upset about it.
You're still upset about it. Well, hey, maybe we can always go back and see where they are.
You
eventually you know, you both got on with your careers, you with charity and Carl with his, and traveled around the country, and eventually you took an Airstream and traveled around, and then some friends of yours told you about Ocean City, which you thought was what? Ocean City up north, New Jersey.
Atlantic City.
But
yeah.
it was down here, and you came down here to visit, and you liked it.
Well, when I walked into this area, I just felt something special. And I thought to myself, my girlfriend took me all around the very day we landed. And when I saw the yacht club, I really melted. I said, I've got to buy some property here. So the next day, I didn't tell my husband. I went around and bought a piece of land. So he wanted to bring our Airstream and put it on the camp up there. There's a camp somewhere near here. So he went there and put a deposit on it. I think it was $1,000. So he didn't know I bought this property, and I didn't tell him for a long time because I was afraid he would yell and scream, you know, which he did. But then he just thinks that was the best thing I ever did, because I wish now I had bought, you know, more on the water.
Don't we all?
You know.
Yeah. But you built a home in Sherwood Forest, right, where you live today.
Right.
And got involved certainly in the area. And I dare say you are as active now as you were 30 years ago. And you have your new charity, Star Charities.
Right.
And
we just started, yes.
That just started. And you
With
have...
the help of the Ocean City Bank, Kathy Drew and Rhonda Richardson, who are the ones that guided me a lot, and I have to say thank you to them. And then there was Joe Shano, the lawyer, who helped me. And so now, and I'm really sorry I hadn't done this years ago, only because it's just opened up a lot of doors for us, and we're just doing great. So because we can do more to help people. My heart goes out to these people who have Alzheimer's and who have diseases, you know, and I just want to help them as much as we can.
Well, you've done an awful lot of that, and on behalf of not just the Ocean Pines community, but the community in the area, we like to, you know, to thank you for caring about others and for all that you do to help those that are in need. And I would say to our viewers that the next time you see Anna Foultz, you can thank her for yourself, but be prepared to hear about our next project, and I dare say it will be worth it. And we'd like to thank you, Anna, for taking time today, and we'd like to thank our viewers for being here and finding out a little more about one of our local charitable dynamos.
And I like to say I have a wonderful husband who supports me, and I have to thank him too.
I've met him, and I
the
agree. We thank him
community.
for his service to our country as well.
Yes.
And thanks again, Anna, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
This is Jack Barnes for Focus on the Pines.